Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you all about the latest from Sinisthra, The Broad and Beaten Way, out May 15th on Rock Shots Records. This album has 6 tracks, 42 minutes in length, and this is the band's second full-length studio album. This is a melancholic, melodic, sad, and filled with despair concept record. The name of the album comes from Paradise Lost by John Milton, is the name of the bridge between hell and earth, and in the lyrics you get this story of men falling from heavenly grace all the way into our self-destructive modern lifestyle. This is an album that combines lyrics and sound extremely well. The reason why is because they both carry the same condiments, they both carry the same emotional baggage. They're both filled with painful despair and sorrow, and that allows them to intertwine themselves from the first track all the way to the last track. As far as structure is concerned, the album moves very slowly. This is not a record that offers you dynamic changes from track to track. There's no peaks, there's no valleys. It's just very linear, very concise in its approach. The changes happen on a track-by-track basis. They use the same elements on every song. They use them in a different way. They combine them in a different way in order for each song to have its very individual sound, its own individual fingerprint, its own individual approach. But when you put all 6 songs together, the album feels as one. The album is very linear, like I said. It has a methodic approach on a track-by-track basis. You really feel like the album drags out from song to song, not only musically, but I feel like it also drags out emotionally. It's a very emotionally driven record, which makes it a heavy album, not musically, but more from an atmospheric element, from what's inside of it, not necessarily what's coming at you in the music. So it's a deep thought, and it's an album that requires a lot of deep thought process in order for you to really engage with the record and understand how emotionally draining and heavy the album is. The main elements of this record, in my opinion, are the keyboards, guitars, and vocals. Starting off with the keyboards, I love what they bring to the table. In my opinion, they bring 2 main elements to the table. The ability to add great melody to the tracks, to really give the songs this really cool melodic bass line. Most of the songs in the background just as an undercarriage to the tracks, and in some cases then morphing more into the forefront, becoming more of one of those predominant elements of the songs. The other aspect is the atmosphere that they bring to the tracks. Adding melody and sometimes replacing melody with atmosphere is something that you're going to get from the keyboards. The way they're constructed in the songs and the way they're constructed within the songs allows them to give a track melody at one point and atmosphere at the next turn. Very dynamic from the keyboards. The keyboards have a very dynamic sound, very dynamic approach that really gives something to the songs, that really changes the feel, the mood, everything surrounding the song. The keyboards really determine how that song feels to you and how that song impacts you on an emotional level. They're really dripped in emotion all the way through, and the changes between the more atmospheric approach and the more melodic approach does that. It creates those swings, it creates those unbalances. The next element is the guitars. Superb guitar work on this album. I really felt that they added a lot of texture. They didn't drive the songs forward, but they definitely gave a little bit more substance, a little bit more sound, a little bit more texture to how the songs are put together, to how they sound, and then how they take you on the journey of this album. The last element, the vocals. To me, this is an album that surrounds itself with the vocals in the middle. The vocals are the pedestal of this record. Tommy Johnston on vocals, just absolutely amazing. I mean, what else can you say about this guy? He has an incredible voice. He could sell ice to Eskimos. And on this album, he uses only clean vocals. There's no harsh vocals. He uses only clean vocals, and he pierces you through the heart with his voice. Absolutely amazing. What he can do with his voice on this record is nothing less than phenomenal. He really brings the lyrics to life. And in my opinion, he really brings the emotional aspect that the story and that the lyrics have. He really transcends the lyrics. He transcends the song. He becomes the beacon of light and hope throughout this album. But at the same time, when he needs to cut down deep and move you into a more sense of despair and hopelessness, he's also able to do that with his voice without changing too much. Just a little bit of changing of tone, just a little bit of a change of approach adding a little bit more intensity. I also like what they did in some songs by adding some vocal layers to him. It gave the songs a little bit more of a texture, it gave the songs a little bit more of a volume without making them heavy, without having to go with harsh vocals. I really don't feel that harsh vocals would have a place on this record, considering the overall atmosphere and feel that this album has. His voice, as is perfect to deliver the message that the album needs to deliver, and it's perfect to tell you the story that the album needs to tell. So I absolutely love his vocals. To me, it's the main driving force of this record. His voice carries everything else behind it. He drags everything through it with his voice. He is that beacon of light on this record. Overall, this is a great album, and to me, having Tommy on vocal really does elevate the quality of the record, because an album that is this emotionally driven, that has this kind of a story, that has this kind of a layout, that has this kind of a process, that the way they use the keyboards, like I said, with a more melodic side, with a more atmospheric side, when you have an album that is this thoughtful, that is this creative, and that is this sad and filled with this amount of melancholy and despair, you need the right vocalist to really bring out those songs and to really bring the perfect tone in order to deliver the songs in a perfect way, so that the message is simple and concise. He does that, and in my opinion, that elevates the quality of the record, making this an amazing album to listen to. As far as songs are concerned, I want to start off with Eterne. This is the opening track on the album. Heavy riff with a great melodic keyboard undertone in the verses. That's pretty much how it starts off. The song gains more volume as you move into the chorus, and it gains a little bit more intensity from the vocals. It does not change a lot. There's not this drastic change between the verses and the chorus. There's just a little bit of a change in the intensity that the song has, and that happens more on the vocal side. On the musical side, it gains a little bit more volume, but the changes are very subtle, they're not abrupt, and that allows the song to have great fluidity all the way through. It really allows the song to still be dynamic, it still be melodic, it still be melancholic without abrupt changes, but have a great fluidity all the way. Since it grows in volume, this is a song that not only grows in volume moving in towards the chorus from the verses, but it's a song that gains even more volume as it goes towards the end of the track. The last two chorus, the last time that you go through the chorus twice, you really feel the intensity of the track. You really feel the volume becoming bigger, the sound becoming larger. So there's a gradual movement as you go through this song. Perfect intro into the album, and I really like that aspect, that underlining aspect of growth in terms of volume and intensity from the verses to the chorus, and then finally as a song in general. Next, Morning Frail, a song that alternates a more stripped down vocals and keyboard with bigger volume and sound, and both musically and vocally. So you really have a two-way street with this track. There's definitely two different parameters with this song. Adding some layers to the vocals, in my opinion, really added texture and more presence without making the song heavier, without having to use a different style of vocals. Adding the layers just gives that more bigger volume, bigger presence to the way the vocals come across, and that's something they used in this song, and in my opinion they used it well without having to change too much about the track or too much about the vocals. The melodic atmospheric guitar, almost proggy middle bridge really breaks this track into two. You really have a song that is divided by that portion there right in the middle of the track. The first part of the track had some more stripped down portions. It wasn't as intense, it wasn't as robust as far as the sound is concerned. It had a sense of gradual process of growing into something, but then the second part, I feel like you almost lose your innocence as far as the song is concerned. So the song becomes a lot more intense, not heavy, but just a lot more intense. The volume stays more concentrated, becoming bigger and not really dissipating at any point in time. So it becomes a bigger wall of sound moving towards you. And there's this sense of losing the innocence that the song starts out, because the song starts out with almost a sense of hope and being innocent about what's happening around you, but the way it closes it off after that middle bridge that almost feels like a search for inner truth allows you to finally reach the light at the end of the tunnel and then lose all of your innocence, and you see things for what they are. You see all the brutality around you without having the song being brutal at all. Still very melodic and melancholic, but I really feel that from the energy that you get from the track, and I really like that closing at the end and having this song divided into two parts really adds something different to this track, makes this track almost a bridge track within the album. It allows you to go from the more innocent side of the record to the more self-aware side of the record. Last but not least, Ephemeral. This is a very peaceful track, and it's really driven by the vocals. It has a really sad opening soundscape. It starts off really stripped down. It gains more substance. It gains more sound as it moves along. And then it finishes off very atmospheric, almost the sound of nature. It has a really nice transition, and it has a really nice fluidity. Very small amount of vocals on this track, just really at the beginning, and then they change at the end. Well, there's vocals at the end, but it's not the same style of vocals. It's a song that hides the vocals in the second half when it becomes more atmospheric. It hides the vocals in the background, almost as a backdrop. Almost as a thought process, as your mind speaking to you and letting you know what's happening, you coming to that deep realization almost. And I really like that aspect. There's a sense of self-awareness with this song. While the previous song, there was a sense of loss of innocence and realize where you actually are is not where you thought you were. And this song, I felt like there was a sense of self-awareness at the end, realizing that this is what it is. And you cannot paint it in any other way. So there's this that gradual process of self-awareness that starts at the beginning of the song, and then it goes all the way through the end of the song. But you really feel that at the end, and the way the song is very atmospheric in nature, with the vocals in the backdrop. Like I said, almost humming in the backdrop as a narrator, just a very thin line of vocals, just to give you a sense of, to give you that emotional sense of self-awareness that this is what you're seeing and not something, and not what you want to see. Sometimes it's hard to come to those realizations, but I really feel like this album comes full circle with this last song, starting off, like I said, almost feeling more of an innocent aspect of being a little bit less self-aware. That's how the album starts, and then when you finish it off, you finally come to grips with what's around you. This is it, guys. This is Sinisthra with The Broad and Beaten Way, once again out May 15th on Rotshot Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the album. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.